It has been over a year since the Ixiarts lost their guerrilla campaign against the Proxenuthians. The Ixiarts fell back to their homeworld, which is a large moon named Ixiar in neutral space orbiting an uninhabited planet. The free tribes were defeated but not broken. Their fleet, composed mostly of cruisers, was down to just over 24 ships. They have been trying to rebuild since they lost to Wimi II, but with few allies and few mines they could claim, the Ixiarts can only slowly replenish their numbers. Unfortunately for them, their homeworld is now being attacked by a fleet of Moral warships. The Morals are large bipedal red-skinned amphibious beings with 4 arms. The Morals are notoriously known for being the galaxy's mercenaries. For the right price, they will fight down to the last man. The Ixiarts can only assume this latest assault was paid for by the Proxenuthian Empire in an attempt to crush the free tribes. General K'tung, the Ixiart military commander, has organized the defense, but the battle is not going well for the Ixiarts. Despite their valiant efforts, the Ixiarts found themselves overwhelmed by the superior firepower and numbers of the Moral warships. General K'tung and his forces fought fiercely, but they were gradually pushed back, forced to retreat to fortified positions on Ixiar's surface. The Morals launched relentless assaults, bombarding the moon's defenses and wreaking havoc on its surface. As the battle raged on, casualties mounted on both sides, and the Ixiarts realized that they were facing a formidable adversary. With their resources stretched thin and their fleet weakened, they struggled to hold off the Moral onslaught and protect their homeland from falling into enemy hands. Despite the odds stacked against them, General K'tung refused to surrender, rallying his troops and coordinating a desperate defense against the Moral invaders. The Ixiarts fought with unmatched resolve and purpose, utilizing every guerrilla tactic they had learned with the human space marines on Mars, using their cunning strategies to inflict heavy losses on the enemy forces. Despite their best efforts, however, the Morals continued to advance, steadily gaining ground and pushing the Ixiarts to the brink of defeat. General K'tung realized the Morals must have been hired to capture as many Ixiarts as possible. They would not have bothered to lightly bombard their base camps and homes to deploying ground troops so early if they only wanted to kill them off. This gave General K'tung an alternate priority in organizing his lines. He ordered all civilians to scatter into the wilderness and caves away from their settlements, and ordered every Ixiart elite and militia member to defend the civilian evacuations at all costs. As the battle raged on, General K'tung knew that the fate of his people hung in the balance. With every passing moment, the situation grew more dire, and the Ixiarts realized that they were facing their greatest challenge yet. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, they remained steadfast in their resolve to defend their home and preserve their way of life at all costs. With their backs against the wall and their resources dwindling, General K'tung devised a daring plan to turn the tide of the battle. Drawing upon the resilience and ingenuity of his people, he coordinated a series of strikes against key Moral targets, disrupting their supply lines and weakening their forces. The Ixiarts launched surprise attacks from hidden bunkers and underground tunnels, catching the Morals off guard and dealing significant blows to their war effort. Despite facing overwhelming odds, the Ixiarts refused to surrender, fighting with staunch fortitude and valor. Their spirit and ingenuity enabled them to withstand the Moral onslaught and hold their ground, buying precious time for reinforcements to arrive and bolster their defenses. As the battle raged on, General K'tung remained a beacon of hope for his people, inspiring them to stand firm in the face of adversity and continue the fight for their freedom and survival. With most of the Ixiart civilian population evacuated to safety and the tribal leaders secured in designated zones, General K'tung could focus on maximizing the effectiveness of his troops in the defense of their home world. Despite their valiant efforts, the Ixiart forces were gradually dwindling in number after enduring ruthless attacks from the Morale invaders for nearly a full day. On the southern flank of the defenses, Captain Frang and Captain Vromp led their militia troops in a dire struggle against the fierce assaults unleashed by the Morales. As the situation grew steadily more severe, Frang received a critical update from one of his subordinates. A dozen new dropships were en route to their location. Knowing that their forces could only hold out against the Morales for a limited time, Frang recognized the arrival of reinforcements as a potential turning point in the battle. With renewed hope, he prepared his troops for the imminent arrival of the reinforcements, hoping that they would tip the scales in their favor and bolster their defenses against the relentless Morale onslaught. The tension among the Ixiart defenders reached its peak as they awaited the arrival of reinforcements. Every passing moment felt like an eternity as they braced themselves for the next wave of Morale attacks, knowing that their survival depended on the swift intervention of their allies. Finally, the distant rumble of approaching dropships broke through the chaos of battle, signaling the imminent arrival of aid. As the dropships descended from the sky, the Ixiart forces watched with a mixture of relief and anticipation. With a thunderous roar, the dropships touched down on the battlefield, and from within emerged the formidable Human Alliance Space Marines. The sight of their allies bolstered the morale of the Ixiart defenders, infusing them with newfound purpose to repel the Morale invaders and protect their home world at all costs. With the combined strength of the Ixiart and human forces, they launched a counter-offensive against the Morales to reclaim their territory and drive the invaders back. The battlefield erupted into a chaotic frenzy as the Ixiart and human forces fought side by side against the obstinate Morale onslaught. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, the Allied troops displayed remarkable resilience and tactical prowess, pushing back against the enemy forces with unwavering determination. Captain Frang and Captain Vromp led their troops with daring and principle, rallying their soldiers to stand firm in the face of adversity. As the battle raged on, the tide began to turn in favor of the Allied forces. With the combined strength of the Ixiarts' guerrilla tactics and the Human Alliance's advanced weaponry, they were able to gain the upper hand and drive the Morales back. The invaders faced with fierce resistance on all fronts, but as always, Morales never surrender and fought to their last man and last ship in orbit. Victory belonged to the defenders of Ixiar, who had stood united in the face of overwhelming odds to protect their home world from the clutches of their enemies. In the end, General K'tung thanked the Human Alliance for their bravery and commitment to keeping the Ixiarts a free people. Without the Space Marines, the free Ixiarts would have perished. But General K'tung knew this victory was bittersweet. He had lost over half his troops and nearly 2/3 of what remained of his fleet. The Prosenuthians didn't have to completely defeat the Ixiarts. This blow was a victory within itself. The Human Alliance offered the Ixiarts a beacon of hope. They would negotiate an agreement between the Ixiarts, the Klops, and the Olems. The proposition was to bring a small space station into orbit and use the remnants of all ships that were destroyed to be salvaged and refitted to become light cruisers. The Ixiart tribal leaders accepted the offer as they had little choice at this point to continue to survive. The battle and their way of life would have been lost, if not for the humans.